Hi all, this is the Skeptic Medium Christy, and today I'm going to be talking about another one of the big downloads I got, which was about my question about the ex-president of the US, and his link to Operation Warp Speed, because this just didn't make sense to me, and it's been a thing that's been troubling me for a long time. If T is on the side of the right and on the side of humanity, why would he push this jab on us that is so clearly harmful and hurting us? And so I was sent on an adventure, and I actually feel like I spoke to, I know that sounds really weird, but I actually feel like in this deep state I was in, that I actually spoke to him and he explained things to me. So, like, I'm guessing I'm connecting with his soul, higher self, or something. But he went through quite a lot of painstaking ways to show me that it is indeed him, the way he spoke, his accent, and so on. So the first thing that I asked him was, why have I been deceived? Why have I not been shown these things by spirit before? Why have I not been entrusted to know this stuff? And he said, because you're a loudmouth. I was quite offended by this. I was quite hurt, like you just said it so straight out. And he said, well, it's true, you are a loudmouth. And I was like, okay. So I'm getting scolded, first things first. But then he said, he was walking in front of me and he turned around and said, but you know what? Who's the biggest loudmouth of them all? Me. We just had to know that you were ready, it was also had to be at a time when the information needed to be shared or was available to be shared with the earth. And so things are being revealed to me because it is now time for a consciousness to start awakening in the human population of what has really gone on. So now, Operation Warp Speed was not what we thought it was. I always thought that T was with the program. He wanted us to all get this. This is actually not really what happened. What happened is that the White Hats managed to discover, and one thing you've also got to understand is that T went through great stakes to make sure I understood that he is not central in this, that he is only the front man. He was chosen because of his lack of fear, because of his loud mouth, and because he mixed in the right circles. He knew the right people, and he had seen what was going on. He was chosen because of his lack of fear, most particularly. He has no fear, this man. So anyway, what had happened, I've got to try and get my thoughts in order. Sorry, because the downloads are so fast, so much information in such a short space of time, that I'm sure there's things I'm going to miss, but I'm trying my best. So first of all, I've got a previous video that I put up about what went wrong with T. You need to go and have a listen to that. I was showing that he was deceived, and that it had something to do with Israel, and it had something to do with a mystical being. And he confirmed that this was indeed the case. Now, in his family, there seems to have been an availability to technology that it's like he knew about portals and time traveling and all of that way before other people did. It's like knowledge that was passed down to him in his family. And so he made a pilgrimage or trip to Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, why is Jerusalem so important? Because it is a massive portal. And this is why all religions converge there, and this is why there is such a big fight over Jerusalem, because it is a huge spiritual portal. And in Jerusalem, or somewhere on the outskirts, I'm guessing, or maybe in a building, I don't know, he had a vision. And this being of light appeared to him and told him of what he was going to do, and also told him who he needs to stay close to, the people. He named people. You need to be close to this one and this one and this one. And so that was a very profound experience. And he started becoming friends with the people that he had been told to befriend, like Epstein, like Gates, like the Rothschilds. He was advised to be with these people. He was then approached by the White Hats, and as I said, there are way more powerful people involved here with far more knowledge than him. And they took him to show him that he had been deceived, that the being that he had seen was not a being of light, it was simply a lizard shape-shifting, and that he had been encouraged to get himself entrenched with the wrong people. And they had to take him to see the horrors of what is actually going on. He said it was so bad that he was throwing up. The stuff that he saw was so bad. In these underground tunnels, the kinds of beings and creatures that have been captured. Horrific, horrific things, he told me. One of them that he told me, interestingly, was about a building he was taken to. Now, the building is in a shape of a star. It's not the Pentagon. It's another building, but of a similar sort of shape. And in this building, what they had found were babies' skulls. But he said piled up, thousands upon thousands of these babies' skulls. And it was like, I asked, well, why were they doing that? And he said, we're not entirely sure. We think that it's part of like a memento or a proof, some kind of part of the ritual to keep these skulls. But he said it was absolutely horrific. And from then on, he agreed to work with them and realized that the very people that he had been encouraged to be in contact with and to get close to were actually his enemies. And so everything changed from that point forward. And he agreed to work with them in bringing the whole thing down. So he said the reason that the military has actually been so quiet, why they have tried to cover it up so desperately, it's not only from the lizard species side, but it's from the good side as well. Because there is so much that they're trying to keep hidden, that they're trying to not let the lizards know they know. And they are also having to keep things away from the public because, like he said to me, we are big mouths and we need to keep our mouths shut. But I was shown this at a time when I'm obviously allowed to tell you now about all of this. So, Operation Warp Speed, let's go back to that. They knew that the pandemic was coming. They knew, and they know that there are other deadly weapons that have been developed, that it is part of, these diseases are part of the very serious plan to reduce the world population drastically, quickly. They need to do this. We are too numerous. We are too numerous for them, and it's out of, they can't control us with this many people on the planet. They can't. They actually need it reduced drastically to control us. And they knew that it was coming, that they were going to release these bioweapons. They also knew, and they managed to find stockpiles of jabs. These had been developed already, way before any of this happened. For some reason, on the timeline of the lizards, they could not release it immediately, even though they had it stockpiled. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but they could not release it. He knew that they could only release it in 18 months. And so what he did was set about, well, not just him, many, to, as fast as possible, create new jabs. He also explained to me that the jabs were designed in different ways. They're not all the same. They're not all meant to affect us the same. Different jabs were destined for different populations. Different jabs would do different things to people. Absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with COVE. And so they knew, and they intercepted a lot of this. And he managed to, through negotiations and also taking out the leaders of the big pharma companies that they were going to replace as much of it as they could with saline. And that is why there's reports of like a good third, there's probably even more than that, of these jabs were actually saline. That was Operation Warp Speed. So if you were lucky enough to have the saline, your life was saved. And he said to me that millions upon millions, we saved millions of lives through what we did. Unfortunately, they could not stop it all. And many of the batches did get through, especially in the countries where the leaders are working very closely with the lizards. Our country, South Africa, is one of them. Unfortunately, he did say a lot of bad batches got through. And our president had a lot to do with that, making sure that happened. He said it basically was like, it's like trying to intercept drugs, trying to stop big shipments of drugs. You can get a lot of it, but some of it gets through and you just can't stop it. When they realized that there were bad batches getting to certain populations, they told the leaders of those areas, don't, turn it back. And they especially warned a lot of the African countries because Africa was totally set for destruction. And he showed me that the thing that they were planning for Africa was that at a certain frequency, and this thing about the 5G is true, 5G, 6G, 7G, at a certain frequency, the technology in the vax gets activated. And in the case of Africa, the thing that would be activated was aggression and anger. And they knew through this there would come war and they would kill each other. That was the plan. And so the White Hats approached many African leaders who were not involved in all of this and told them, send it back. Don't encourage your people to take this. Don't. These leaders were killed. I mean, if you look back, you can see quite a lot of leaders have been killed. And to make sure that that their agenda came in, the Luciferian agenda came in. And they were not expecting the resistance of Africa against it. They really thought that we would all rush out and take it. And, you know, even after everything in our country, after the coercion, the bribing, the threatening, losing jobs, billions upon billions spent on advertising campaigns, media coverage, media cover-up, it was extensive. Still, even after all of that, and even though we were being told that this thing is deadly, it's going to kill us, we didn't take this thing. Only 30% took it up. There was a lot of saline that got to South Africa, but he does say quite a lot of the bad stuff, especially later on, got through. His philosophy and the whole philosophy of the White Hats is that we chose to try to save the collective, not the individual. And we had to accept that we couldn't save everybody. We were not going to be able to save everybody. And that they were trying to especially save people who were going to take this thing ignorantly. And they knew that they could not stop the program because if he had put a stop to it, it would have appeared as if he doesn't care about people, he just wants to kill everybody. And he knew the technology would come out regardless, so he had to do whatever he could to make sure that he got in as much of the clean stuff as he could. And I'm saying him, I'm talking about a much bigger operation. He's just a part of it. Now I've lost my train of thought. Where did I go? Where was I going with this? Sorry. So many things in my head. Okay, so yes, they could only save a certain number of people, and also it was like, we are going to show mercy because in this first wave of the vaxxers, it will prove that the thing is useless, and people should then probably be convinced it doesn't work Stop taking it. It's not working. But those that were fooled the second time around, again, they were still trying to intercept them. But after the second time around, they decided that's it. Anybody that still wants to take this thing doesn't really deserve to continue on, because they are hindering the human race. If they are that willing to blindly follow their leaders into the pit of hell, then we rather focus on saving those who want to save themselves, kind of thing. So that's what's happened there. Gosh, you told me so much, but I'm going to just leave it there regarding Operation Warp Speed and what was actually going on there and why he was so involved. Please check out my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, and consider donating to me. This work doesn't actually pay me. Thanks.